You're here with me today. I'm Nancy, and I'm going to guide you through many of the joint warming, joint movement practices that I teach my students. I've been doing this for a while now, beginning my classes with warming up the joints before getting into the typical posture practice. The reason is, I think what often has happened in yoga is we, especially if you're flexible, tend to sort of hyper extend in the joint body or collapse into the joint body. And the joints are there to support the bones. So starting with some movements to warm up all the joints of the body, I often say it's similar to like making sure your car has oil in it. If you drive a car, or your bike chain is lubricated, or like pouring some nice juicy olive oil into all the joint spaces in the body so they're supple and juicy and mobile, not sticky and clicky. So we'll start from the ground up. But before we do that, let's just take maybe 3 or 4 minutes to get grounded. So if you're joining me on your mat, or if you're just sitting or standing somewhere, let's take a couple of minutes to arrive. So closing your eyes and feeling whatever is supporting you through your sit bones or your feet, wherever you are in your body right now. Feeling the connection and support to ground beneath you. And noticing how you're feeling in your physical being right now. And maybe even in your joints, if any of your joints are speaking to you. So just to check in with you and your body, your being. Try to unclench and relax. And notice your breath. Just breathing in and out through your nose at a easy, unfettered pace. So we're not pushing or forcing the breath. Feeling the breath in, feeling the breath out. And if you're sensing that the breath is shallow or short, then try to increase the volume of your breath in from a place of awareness and attention, and lengthen your breath out. Again, not forcing, just more from a place of observing, putting a little more attention and awareness into our breath. And then with your next exhalation, you can ease your eyes open. And we'll start, if you're joining me on the ground, just to work into the right foot. So bending your right knee, you can hook around the back of your leg and start to circle into your ankle joint. So we'll just do a few repetitions through all the different places in the body. So we're going to circle in both directions. And then to awaken into the knee from here on the ground, we can alternate between bending and straightening the knee. And we're going to do that on the other side. So change over. So the other thing about the joint body, so we're circling the ankle, is the understanding that everything is connected. So when I had a shoulder injury years ago, I'm gonna go the other way, the chiropractor worked on my ankle. I had an old ankle injury, and the left ankle was jammed and stuck, and then that's to the knee, which was impeding a clear line of movement up into my body. So therefore my shoulder joint was also stuck. So it's all connected. And if we work all the joints in the body, then we are working the entire body. So let's come up to stand. And we'll keep working in the feet a little bit more. So this one, I've got my right foot forward and a slight rotation out. So I can very carefully roll to the pinky toe edge of the right foot. So I start to work into the right ankle this way. Then I'll change, I'll do that on the left one. So the movements are mindful, we're not just flopping the foot out and in, just really carefully rolling, especially if your students do have any injuries in the joints. We want to be cautious and go slowly. And then the inside of the foot, ankle, so you can turn the foot a little bit in, the leg a little bit in. So there's a slight internal rotation to roll to the big toe side. And I notice, especially as we'll do the left side, as I get older, the joint body gets a little stiffer. And also I think a lot of students in the West aren't super aware of their feet. They kind of cram them into shoes. Don't really think about moving their feet very much. So I think it's really important to build awareness into feet for yoga practice. So the next one, I'll turn this way so you can see it. And it can be a bit of a yowzer. So I'm on the top part of my right foot. I'll show you this one maybe. It can be a little crampy for me. And you could, maybe that's enough to be there, or you can do a little pulsing action to stretch and open through the front of the foot, and we'll do that on the left side. So come onto the top of the foot and either just stay there or do a little pulse. And come back to both feet. So you could do lots of things with the toes, but I'll just show you one. And it's alternating between coming up onto tippy toes, so you get a little balance in, and then coming down to heels and lifting and spreading toes. And you could do that just in this movement, particularly or specifically for the toes, or you could include a little movement with the arms as you alternate between lifting and spreading toes and then going up onto your toes. Then working up into the knees, the feet quite close together, and take the knees into careful circles. So do a few circles around in one direction and then in the other direction. And we'll move up into the hips. So we'll stand on the left foot and pick the right foot up. So we're turning the leg and the hip joint in and out. So internal, external rotation. You could go slower or quicker. And as you're doing the external, internal rotation, noticing how that feels. And if one is speaking louder to you. So for me, the internal rotation feels a little stickier. So you keep the leg either in or out, your choice, and then straighten the leg and do a few circles. So this movement is more about stabilizing into our very big hip joint. You can do circles in both directions. And back to that foot. So we'll do the same on the left, turning the leg, the femur head in the joint capsule, in and out. Try and balance at the same time. And it doesn't have to be, so if this side was different than the other side, then change. It doesn't have to be the same. So on this side, I'll turn it out and do your circles. And typically we all have asymmetries. We're tighter or weaker or stronger on one side than the other side. So these movements are also good for helping to bring balance to our perfect asymmetry. Good. And then the next one is to take the hip in more of its full range of motion. So you bring the leg up, it's externally rotated, and then you have to internally rotate the leg to bring it around and up behind. Then it goes back out and around. So I'll show you from this side. External rotation, internal rotation, external rotation, internal rotation. I'll try it one more time. And then on the left. So feeling that full range of motion into your left hip. So for me, I can feel this side is much stickier and clickier. And then down. So moving up into the pelvis, you can do the cat-cow movement of drawing the tailbone back and gliding it under, or the pubic bone moving back and forward. So starting to move into the pelvis and into the lumbar spine. And then we'll take that into a full circle. So you go out to the right, back with the tailbone, over to the left with your hips, and then forward with your tailbone or pubic bone. So take it around into a circle. We're going to do the circle in both directions. And we want to do the movements slow enough and mindfully enough so we can really feel what's going on through all the many joints in the body. So let's move up first into the side body, into starting to work into some of the rib joints. So you can have the arms out to the side and try to move the side body side to side. And then as you reach over to the right with your ribs, you could bring the arms up and over and take it into a side stretch, as if you're arcing up and over a big beach ball, and then back and over to the left, and over an imaginary beach ball. Come back to center, so to work more up through the thoracic spine, the cat-cow movement, so lifting through the chest and then rounding the upper back. So alternating between cat-cow mostly through the upper thoracic spine. Mobilizing through the joints of our spine, and then as you bring it back to center, so you can curl your fingers in and your thumbs will come in and sort of reach back a little bit around behind you and circle around. So this is working into the elbow joints and shoulder joints. And we do that in both directions. then this is the pranic bath for the shoulder joints. You sweep the palms up overhead behind you. You come around behind, you try to touch the back of the hands together. And then you reach it up, and it's like you're tracing a big circle around in your peripheral vision. So we go up, kind of like you're splashing a big wave up, back, behind, and around. Taking the shoulders through their optimal full range of motion. So there's quite a few different things we can do with the shoulder joint, a very possibly mobile joint, and also through the scapula, the shoulder blades that can get stuck on the body down the rib cage. So we'll do a few of those in a sec. So, pranic bath, and then just give your shoulders a few rolls. So to isolate the shoulder blade, we'll start with the right one. Bring your right arm out, and we'll lift the right shoulder blade up, and then pull it in towards the spine, and then glide it down towards the earth, and then move it out to the side. So we bring it up in elevation, squeeze it in, so retraction, draw it down towards the ground. I think I forget what that is, Russian, and then out towards the side, which is protraction. So we go up, in, down, and out. Up, in, down, and out. And then from out, you can take it the opposite direction, so down, in, and up. Just see if you can unstick that shoulder blade if you happen to have a sticky one. So we do it both directions, and then keep the arm out. So this circling movement to stabilize around the joint. So just making some circles with your right arm. And doing that in both directions. And you can release, give that arm a little shake with the shoulder. So try that with our left one. Bring the arm out. And just let the arm be, we're not like super rigid in that arm, just to keep it up. So we can now try to mobilize the shoulder blade up, in, down, and out. Up towards your ear, in towards your spine, down towards the earth, out towards the side. And again, really noticing for your own body what's available for you through all these different joints in your body. How are they moving? How are they gliding? Are they sliding? Are they cookie? Are they stuck? And then the opposite direction, the opposite movement of the scapula, which I find the opposite one is a bit tricky. My brain doesn't quite get it. These are good for your brain too, so do these movements in both directions. It's like this isn't something we do typically throughout our day, so it's a little wake up call of proprioception movement. And then you can just give your shoulder, we have this one, so the arms out, and the circles. And the circles in both directions. And you can relax. So into the wrists, you gently curl your fingers in and start kind of like you're revving up your motorcycle. I spend a lot of time on the computer, so my wrists get super tight. So I try to Do a lot of wrist stuff throughout the day. And then to turn in and slightly out, in, slightly out. I'm not very good at remembering the anatomical names of the movements in the joints. And then if you bring your arms out in front of you, palms face forward, you can point your fingers down and then up. And then turn the palms up, curl the fingers and thumbs in, and try not to bend your elbows as you, so it's between like extension and flexion in your wrist, drawing your knuckles in towards you and then down towards the earth. And then just to circle that around. And to work into the fingers, so try to move thumb to finger, so thumbs, then one finger at a time, and then from pinky finger, curling one finger at a time. So doing that a few times, starting with the thumb opening, and then into the pinky finger closing. And then the pinky finger opening and the thumbs closing. So what often happens as we age, some of you don't have to worry about that yet, but as we age, our joints can get stiff from lack of movement and also from inflammation, from arthritis. So moving your joints every day, it's super good to keep them. We want to keep mobile as long as we can. Just flash your fingers. And now moving into the neck, so chin towards, and then away from the throat. So this is flexion when we curl in the neck, and extension when we lift up. And I like to think about, in both these movements, creating space between the cervical spine, between extension and flexion. And then when your chin comes down towards your chest, you can roll it over towards your right shoulder. And then your chin, you can look up, traces a big arc up and over to the left. Turn and look up and trace with the chin up and over to the right. So you do that a few times. My neck is super flicky, so I try to do this at least once or twice a day. And then you can bring your chin back to center and head to neutral, and turning the head right and turning the head left. With awareness to alignment. So often we get our head positioned forward or back. So trying to keep the ears over the shoulders, the chin parallel to the ground as we turn right and turn left. And you can come back to center and bring your hands in. So just to bring it into a forward fold as you exhale. And you can come down here if you're able to squat. So I have to have my heels lifted, maybe you don't. And get a little attention into our toes and feet here, and maybe you can bring your arms up. Maybe you need your fingertips down for a little balance. And then come to hands and knees. So one thing that we often teach in yoga, which is so nice for all the joints in the spine, is cat-cow. You can just take your students through a few rounds of cat and cow. And again, visualizing the joint spaces in the vertebra going between extension and flexion. And another thing that I work in the wrist sometimes from hands and knees position is to turn the fingers out and then towards the knees as far as you comfortably can go. So depending on what's going on for you and your wrists. And that can be a lot and enough. Some students might want more, so they could tuck their toes under and sit back towards their heels. Or maybe even take it up into a downward dog if they really want a lot of sensation. That's enough for me. And to carefully ease out. And then we'll just finish with a little toe stand. So I've got my toes tucked under to sit back on my heels. And just to distract my mind from that sensation in my toes, we can always go back into the wrists. Some movement for the elbows and shoulder joints. And then we can just finish off that joint practice back on our seat. So there's a few ideas for you to incorporate into your practice. So I usually do that at the beginning of my classes for maybe like 20 minutes of joint warm-up before we start moving into the more traditional formal posture practice. If you have any questions, you can put them in a Facebook feed. I'm happy to answer them, and thank you. Thank you for joining me this morning. Have a beautiful Monday.